Last we left off, the crew was still stranded on the asteroid. They repeatedly attempted to contact the home station, only to be left with static on the comms channel. They've done everything they can to survive by salvaging what resources they can from the ship and constructing a rudimentary hydroponics room on the ship itself. It's been enough to keep them alive so far, but the crew is growing more and more desperate by the day. Each passing hour lessens their hope that rescue's on the way. The only option left to them now is to take what components they managed to salvage from the ship and turn those into a makeshift comms console, capable of sending a broadcast further than their built-in communicators. Hopefully that will be enough to contact the station, or at the very least send out an emergency broadcast to passing ships. While the crew gathers the last resources they need to finish the comms console, they've already begun planning work on an area that they can carve out to serve as the new hydroponics room. With the pirates growing increasingly interested in the asteroid, leaving their entire food supply inside the very thing the pirates are so interested in is a rather risky strategy. Instead, they're going to move all of the hydroponics into the core of the asteroid where it can more easily be kept safe and secure. It'll also be quite helpful to have the growing area inside where the crew can access it without having to have their vac suits on. Frankie and Max have already begun mining out the new grow room. Unfortunately, they'll lose a fair few resources when they deconstruct and rebuild the hydroponics, but the sooner it gets done, the better. At least these will hopefully be the last hydroponics the crew will have to build, at least until they get rescued. Quite a bit of progress is being made on the room now. Still needs to be quite a bit bigger before they can start installing the hydroponics inside. It would be nice if they could just move the already built tables, but they're apparently fused into the floor of the ship, so they're going to have to just build brand new ones. They'll need at least 2 tables of rice per crew member, not to mention extra space to grow cloth and psychoid leaves. The psychoid is the least important of the 3, but the rice is critical, and they are going to need cloth for new clothes soon. No one wants to have to live in clothes that they pulled off dying pirates. They've been making significant progress towards getting the hydroponics room mined out, but they've still got a ways to go. In the meantime, the crew needs to work on producing more chem fuel, or they're going to lose half their power generation rather soon. One of the chem fuel generators is already run dry. The next one's not going to be far behind it. The rice supply is rather limited at the moment, but they're going to have to make the difficult decision to sacrifice a portion of it for fuel. At least once the new hydroponics are up, they should have plenty for both eating and fuel. Speaking of, the room is mostly mined out now. It's not going to be long until they can begin construction on their new food production. Max and Theo can finally take off those suits and start smoothing out some of these floors to help out with the beauty situation. They're going to need every advantage they can get in order to keep their mood up. Meanwhile, Frankie's hard at work digging a new tunnel through the asteroid looking for additional steel veins. The tunnel can also serve as a way of luring raiders through. It'll be a small channel that offers little to no cover to the raiders. While the crew was busy at work carving out the asteroid, another group of pirates arrived to make things a little bit more difficult. They are dead set on stripping every last piece of metal and component from the ship that they can. It's unclear who exactly is behind these attacks, but they seem perfectly willing to sacrifice members of their crew for this particular prize. This time they only sent 2 raiders, so hopefully things go nice and smooth for our crew. They're going to wait until the pirates begin their attack before they sally out and meet them. Frankie is the first to meet the pirates. He took a position to fire, but the bullets started flying over his head immediately, and he had no choice but to retreat further back. The pirate chased, giving Frankie the perfect opportunity to appear around the corner again to unleash a wall of pellets from his shotgun. It only took a moment, and the first pirate's already dead. While Frankie was busy with that pirate, the other tried to wrap around the asteroid to attack him from behind. Unfortunately for that pirate, they walked directly into a deadfall trap. It came crashing down on their head and killed them instantly. pirates are going to have to try a bit harder than that if they want to have a chance of taking this ship. Now, Max will have to get to work breaking down these extra guns and the tainted vac suits that they acquired from the pirates. While Max is busy with that, Frankie and Tobin have returned to work mining out the hydroponics room. They've accumulated quite a bit of extra stone that they're going to have to haul out of this room now. Max managed to get enough steel from smelting down the gear to allow Theo to begin construction on the next battery. Hopefully 2 will be enough capacity to satisfy any power requirements of the colony for the near future. Now that they have larger battery capacity, they're going to need to increase power generation. Best option at this point is going to be another solar panel. After Tobin removed the stone roof, she immediately began work on the solar panel itself. The project didn't take her long at all. The solar panel is already built and it's ready for use. 4 panels should be enough for now. At almost exactly the same time, Max has snapped and decided to wander off while a cluster of cargo pods have crashed in on the side of the asteroid. The pods appear to be full of psychite leaves. Makes you wonder how the leaves are still intact in a vacuum. But let's not worry about it too much. Now the crew could potentially get a stove going in order to start crafting a bit of psychite tea, but instead, they've decided to just turn the leaves into chem fuel. In the meantime, let's get Tobin to go out and start hauling all these leaves in. Now it's time to set up a bill so the crew can start converting all these leaves into chem fuel. Right in time for the power to start failing. Perfect. The other generator was turned off to conserve fuel consumption, but now that the other ones run out of fuel, it's going to have to be switched back on to make up for the power deficit. Let's hope that helps a little bit. Next up, the crew is going to build another wall in the ship to make the growing section a bit smaller. That way it's going to be easier to keep warm. There we go. Wall's all done, and immediately after they finish the project, Max has decided to mindlessly wander through one of the restricted doors, causing the entirety of the breathable air in the room to immediately vent out into space. Awesome. Only took a split second for the rice to wither and die. There goes the entire food supply. And right at a critical moment when the colony was already out of food. Luckily they managed to harvest a meager amount of rice before the rest died off. Otherwise, they'd be in a lot of trouble. While Max was broken and wandering, so too was Theo, and now he's decided to take what little food supplies left and binge on it. Absolutely terrible timing. This means the colony has a very difficult choice to make. Starve to death, or turn to... Well, sometimes difficult decisions have to be made. At least the rice is all planted and growing again. The entire ordeal was way too much to handle. The weight of what he had just done came crashing down on Frankie immediately after he placed the raw meat in the nutrient paste dispenser. He collapsed on the ground, frozen stiff. Max was the first to discover Frankie in a pile on the floor. Max helped him into the barracks and into his bed. There was nothing obviously wrong with Frankie, so the best thing Max could do at this point was let him rest and hope he shook it off as quickly as possible. At the moment, Frankie was the only one who knew the mystery meat that was being processed through the dispenser, and he wasn't saying a word. All because of a person walking through a door they should not have gone through. They're going to have to immediately address this food shortage. The hydroponic room is mined out enough to at least begin constructing new tables. Now the stonecutter table is going to have to be moved so the door can be sealed up. That way there are no more unfortunate decompression accidents. After the recent minor cannibalism incident, mood is hit an all-time low. Except Max, he seems to be doing perfectly well. Theo and Tobin are having a real bad time though. Well, at least they can begin construction on the hydroponic tables now. The first 2 are built, and already, Tobin is busy at work planting the new crop. Luckily, the ship tables are almost entirely grown, so a large harvest of rice should be arriving just in time to avoid any future unfortunate food decisions. Unfortunately, the crew isn't going to be able to run 2 sun lamps, so they're going to have to grow fungus in the new room for now. Once they have enough tables, they can move the sun lamp over and deconstruct the old ones. Meanwhile, another group of pirates have arrived from the Ghostface Comet. This time it's a large group of 4. With Frankie incapacitated, the crew might have to split them up and try to take them out one at a time. Luckily, one of the pirates walked themselves directly into a stone trap, crushing them and knocking them unconscious. The lead pirate didn't realize their partner had fallen and charged forward blindly. Ooh, this is bad timing for the crew. Another of the pirates came in from the other side and trapped them in between both hostile sides. The crew did the only thing they could: charge the flanking pirate and try to push through. After a quick melee, their tactic worked well. The pirate was down and they were able to fall back to the front of the base. The other pirate ran forward and got off a burst from their machine pistol. Theo took the worst of it and collapsed under the pain. Then Tobin and Max charged toward the pirate to protect Theo, as he writhed around on the ground in pain. After another brief melee, the last pirate was down, allowing Max and Tobin to bring Theo back into the barracks to be treated. After all that chaos, at least the rice has finished growing. Hopefully this will be the beginning of the end of the food shortage issues. While Tobin was busy harvesting all the rice, Max got to work cleaning up the remnants of those raiders. All this blood is going to stick around for, well, forever. At least if no one gets around to mopping it up. There's no rain here to wash it away like on the surface, so it just sticks around until one of the colonists cleans it. If they don't eventually get around to cleaning it, they'll just continue to track blood all over the place as they walk through it. While Max was finishing up work at the smelter, Tobin got to work constructing another hydroponics table. Just a few more, and they can get around to moving the sun lamp over. Now, the crew has managed to install another battery, and they finally got to work on their 5th hydroponics table. The crew needs to do a bit of rearranging to make room for the expansion. The suit stands are going to have to move up here so a new wall can be built in their place. And then the research table is going to have to move to the end of this other hallway. There we go. Now the battery can be moved down with the others and everything will be all set. Now, it's just time to expand this hallway to the west. They began work on the new tunnel only for the effort to be interrupted by a group of Mechanoids that have crashed into the asteroid. The crew immediately ended digging and moved to the exterior of the asteroid. They would have to confront the mechs head-on as to not be overwhelmed by the Scythers. They engaged the first one, and luckily they disabled it before it could deal any damage. They moved on to the next Scyther and opened fire. Things didn't go quite as smoothly with the second one. It managed to close the gap before the crew could slow it down. Tobin and Theo began to run, but Theo was too slow and got caught by the Scyther right as he turned to run. Max immediately went to work stopping the bleeding and patching up Theo's vac suit that almost certainly was venting all of his breathable air through the puncture. After Max finished his work, he picked up Theo and started back towards the dugout shelter. It's been almost impossible for the crew to continue to hope that rescue would still arrive. They've been holding out as long as possible, from tearing down the critical components of the ship. Half the crew was convinced that once rescue arrived, HMC mechanics would return to fix the ship and bring it back to the station. Otherwise, the crew would be on the hook for the cost of the vessel. The other half of the crew believed that they should take every step possible to survive. including repurposing every part of the ship for their survival. Eventually, the latter group won out and the crew set to work tearing down the ship's engines. It's one of the last pieces of the ship yet to be torn out. After the engines are removed, then the crew can get to work tearing down the hull of the ship in order to continue building more hydroponic tables. One last harvest of rice, and then it's finally time to tear out the hydroponic tables inside the ship. There will be some resources lost along the way, but the additional safety that the new tables will have will be worth the trouble. It's going to be near impossible for the interior room to vent its atmosphere, and it will be much easier to keep the room warm, given its location in the center of the asteroid. Now it's finally time to switch the interior tables over to rice. They didn't end up harvesting any fungus, but at this point, it's better to just switch over than wait for the fungus to finish. Tobin began her work of tearing out the old tables. This will be the final preparation for deconstructing the rest of the ship hull. Without the rice growing inside, the crew doesn't have much use for the rest of the ship now. From all that steel, now the crew can add a new chem fuel generator within the safety of the asteroid itself. After that, they should have plenty of steel left over to finish the rest of these hydroponic tables. The crew got to work right away on the new tables. It didn't take them long at all to finish the work. With 11 tables total now, they shouldn't have any more food issues. That is, as long as the power doesn't cut out for too long. They've already made significant progress towards tearing down the hull of the ship. The largest sections have already been torn down. Now they just need to remove the last few sections and then the floor. There's almost enough space in the room for another row of hydroponic tables. They've already got the steel ready to go, so now it's just a matter of mining out this last section of stone and they'll be ready to install the final tables. All these tables and the sun lamp are going to require significant power generation to keep them running all day long. They probably already have the necessary minimum to keep the food growing, but there is enough room for another solar panel, so they may as well install one more, just to be on the safe side. Eventually they will need it, in any case. Max and Tobin are finishing up the hydroponics project. As Max mines out a new section, Tobin comes in and quickly gets to work installing the next table. Now that all the mining is done, all that's left to do is finish up these last 6 tables and then they'll have all the growing capacity that they could possibly need. Perhaps in the future they'll be able to convince a few pirates to join, and then at that point they may need more food, but until then, they should have all the food they could possibly need. After finishing mining out the rest of the grow room, the crew set to work deconstructing the rest of the ship hull. After she finished removing the rest of the roof, Tobin set to work tearing down the final component of the ship. Any chance they had of self-rescue via the ship has long since passed. Without the grav engine or pilot console, the ship would never fly again. If the HMC ever finally rescues the crew, the debt that they will accrue from the loss of the ship will take a lifetime or 4 to pay off. Then again, at least the resources they salvaged will keep them alive. Better alive and in debt than dead on a rock speeding through space. They're currently growing rice on all of the tables, but soon they'll have to change several over to cloth for new clothing, and psychoid leaves for tea. Unfortunately, after building all these new structures, the crew's running really low on components. After accumulating a supply of rice, they'll have to shut off at least half of these tables to avoid risking breakdowns. They need to do everything they possibly can to reduce component consumption. And now the pirates have returned. And this time they're in for a terrible surprise. The target of their operations has completely disappeared. No more ships should mean no more pirate raids, right? Or perhaps the pirates were after something else all along. For now, the crew has more important things on their mind. D1 and Max put on their vac suits and the 4 prepared to defend themselves. The crew pushed out to engage 2 of the pirates. If they weren't in a vacuum, they would have heard the muffled screams of one of the pirates being crushed by a stone trap. Instead, the crew was surprised to see only one pirate coming around the corner at them. When they fell back to deal with the remaining pirate, they were surprised to see that, once again, only one raider had arrived at the base. They quickly dispatched the enemy, but were surprised once again to find one more. In an attempt to salvage the raider's gear, the 4 crew members charged right at him, hoping to melee him without damaging the vac suit. Unfortunately, the crew was a bit overzealous in their actions and tore right through the spacesuit, killing the pirate in the process. At least everyone made it through the raid mostly safe and mostly sound. Now the crew can get back to work on mining out the next section of their base. They'll use this new tunnel as an internal access point to the caves that had been previously drilled out when they first arrived. The caves are mostly stripped of steel, but they will provide a valuable access point to the rear of the base, offering a new route to retreat should the need arise. Since they have access to significant surplus of rice now, they'll be able to create as much chem fuel as they could possibly need. Toward that, the crews decided to construct another chem fuel generator, just to help balance out the peaks and valleys of solar power generation. Conceivably, the crew could switch over entirely to chem fuel, but that isn't necessary quite yet. Frankie and Tobin have been growing closer than ever since declaring their marriage to one another. It's unclear whether or not this marriage is actually legally binding, but for those two, it has sealed their bond. Lately, they've been chatting about freedom. Life on the asteroid has been difficult for everyone. Finding love does make it a bit easier, but they still dream of their life together after they escape this place. Apparently, it involves eating pumpkins. Perhaps one of them dreams of starting a pumpkin farm. Or one of them just really loves pumpkin pie. Probably the latter. The crew is gathered in the dining hall and decided to try to brighten everyone's mood with a celebration. During the party, the crew talked about sweet foods and jaguars, cheetahs and training foxes. Tobin shared a word about sweating with Max. Well, it must be pretty hot wearing a vac suit around inside. Come to think of it, when's the last time Tobin took off her vac suit? Must be pretty sweaty in there. The party came to a close and everyone enjoyed themselves. That should help keep everyone's morale up in the near future. Now their leisure time has been interrupted by more pirates. Apparently the pirates have moved on from raiding for profit to raiding for revenge. The crew has been a thorn in the side of the Ghostface Comet. Not only have they killed dozens of them, but the pirates didn't manage to squeeze out a single silver from their raids. As it so happens, this time a familiar face has arrived with the raid. It's Tobin's grand aunt. The traps did massive damage to the raiders before they could even engage the crew. One went down immediately, and the other 3 were severely wounded before the first gunshot was fired. Surprisingly, the one pirate that survived to engage the crew was Tobin's grandaunt, Estelle. Tobin immediately recognized her grandaunt and begged the crew to be merciful. They put their guns away and moved in to engage her in melee. In a stroke of luck, they managed to take her down without killing her. Perhaps they'll be able to sway her over to the cause as a 5th member of the surviving crew. First, they'll need to clean up the rest of the pirates. Turns out the rest of the pirates were already dealt with by the traps. Another one of the pirates was down but still alive, so the crew set to work rescuing them and tending to their wounds. At this point, the other pirate has been unconscious since arriving in the barracks, so the crew isn't entirely certain what to call him. Nonetheless, they made sure all of his wounds were tended to. Perhaps he'd be amiable and interested in joining the crew. Truthfully, there aren't many options left to him. It's not as if he has a way of escaping this rock. And if he does, the crew would certainly be interested in it. Not long after the prisoners settled in, more intruders have arrived on the asteroid. This time, there's a group of mechanoids that crashed into the far surface opposite of the base. Let's see if the traps deal with them before the crew has to intervene. Unfortunately, one of the Lancers has made it all the way to the front of the base, and it looks angry. The first shot it fired pierced directly through Max's arm, causing severe bleeding. Frankie and Tobin pushed forward to protect Max, but the Lancer responded with another blast directly to Frankie's left arm. The crew managed to return the favor by shooting off both of the Lancer's arms before retreating, but not before Tobin took a shot to her leg. It was a violent encounter for the crew, but fortunately, they all made it through with their lives, even if slightly worse for wear. The crew returned inside and began tending their wounds. Luckily, no permanent damage was done, and after everything was dealt with, they were able to return to work. As it would turn out, they would all live to see another sunrise on this forsaken rock. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for updates on all future videos. For those of you who made it all the way to the end, please consider checking out my Patreon to help support the creation of more videos like this one. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.